Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South China Sea. China's heavy presence in the disputed region is putting the U.S. and its allies on notice. From militarized artificial islands to fighter jets and warplanes.
3:42 p.m., radar alarms ignite. A Chinese Type 052D suddenly veers bow first toward a U.S. destroyer. No hail. No warning. At 25 knots, the math says 185 yards to impact. You're on the bridge, the EW suite lights up, the 5-inch gun slews slightly, and you're seconds from a global incident. What exactly forced one of the deadliest ships in the world to make that move? And how did the US crew keep it from turning into war? Let's break down every second that mattered. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The radar scream isn't random. It's the exact second the Chinese Type 052D breaks formation, a disciplined line turning into an intercept vector.
Philippine Coast Guard says 2 U.S. Navy warships were deployed off Scarborough Shoal following the collision of Chinese ships in the area. Ariela says U.S. ships were exercising navigational rights and freedoms in the West Philippine Sea in accordance with international law. PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Ariela, says USS Higgins and USS Cincinnati were monitored 30 nautical miles away from Scarborough Shoal on Wednesday, August 13.
East of Taiwan, the U.S. Arleigh Burke-class destroyer sails a standard patrol, a route mapped for stability, not confrontation. Its mission is presence, not pressure. But everything shifts when the 052D swings its bow directly toward the American hull, closing distance with aggressive precision. There's no radio call. No coded signal. Just silence, a silence that weighs heavier than words. Within the U.S. ship's Combat Information Center, telemetry spikes across the screens. The data tells a story. The Chinese destroyer leaps from 21 to 25.4 knots in half a minute, slicing the projected closest point of approach down to 185 yards. 2 minutes to impact if no one yields. That number flashes not as speculation but as warning, the difference between deterrence and disaster. The symbolism is unmistakable. A 7,500-ton warship, fully armed, bearing down bow first. Its communication through movement, the maritime equivalent of a glare across a gun barrel. The SPY-6 radar captures it all: heat signatures, course deviation, the layered return of steel against salt air. Every spike translates to intent. Every echo becomes a potential threat plot. Bridge officers move in crisp sequences, voices low, tones even. Hails go unanswered. The 5-inch gun angles a few degrees to starboard, not an aim, but a statement. Control over emotion equals control over escalation.
In recent years, Beijing has begun dramatically expanding the two bases to accommodate a growing fleet of vessels and to provide a home for China's new seaborne nuclear deterrent. On this hill above a luxury hotel is a surface-to-air missile site guarding 2 of China's most important naval facilities, Yulin and Longpo.
It also offers geographical projection for the People's Liberation Army into the South China Sea region, submarines which can follow down this channel into the really deep parts of the South China Sea, which allow for difficulty in detection.
Then, at 3:44 p.m., the Chinese radar locks on. The American crew responds, activating electronic warfare systems designed to neutralize hostile targeting. For 10 seconds, the electromagnetic spectrum becomes the real battlefield. The interference stabilizes the sensors, and both ships hold their ground. No missile. No collision. Just raw, deliberate defiance measured in yards. This wasn't a mistake, it was a calculated message written in wake turbulence and silence. One ship tested limits. The other showed that restraint can weigh more than firepower. That contrast turned a close encounter into a living signal, a message sent through hulls instead of radios. Beijing's Navy has refined this kind of controlled confrontation into something larger than tactics. It's political theater at sea, a floating statement of defiance meant to show presence without initiating a fight. Every knot of speed, every course correction, becomes language inside a broader strategy to challenge U.S. freedom of navigation and to project ownership of disputed maritime space. The 052DS head-on turn wasn't a random burst of aggression. It was a rehearsed move embedded in a pattern China repeats along contested routes, aggressive proximity wrapped in plausible deniability. This is the gray zone, where confrontation is measured not by fire but by nerve. The destroyer's silence that day spoke volumes, testing how far it could press before the U.S. would react. Inside the American bridge, the answer came through calm precision. The Arleigh Burke's crew logged every second, every sensor trace, every electromagnetic flicker. No panic. No rash turn. Just data as armor. In modern naval chess, proof is a weapon. Showing verifiable control on camera can shift world opinion faster than a warning shot. That's why each frame becomes evidence, not just for survival, but for narrative control.
On August 11, China Coast Guard 3104 chased BRP Suluan and performed a risky maneuver. This led to a collision between the China Coast Guard ship and a Chinese Navy warship. Earlier, the People's Liberation Army's Southern Theater Command said it mobilized the forces to monitor, issue warnings, and expel the destroyer USS Higgins. BRP Suluan managed to evade the maneuver. China pushes what experts call an exclusion zone enforcement in Scarborough Shoal, but the 2016 arbitral ruling declared the shoal a traditional.
Crew specialists understand that discipline is deterrence. They measure tone levels in radio silence and analyze reflective radar angles for intent. The goal is clarity, to build a trail that disproves recklessness and proves resolve. Similar incidents before, from ramming threats to near locks, have redrawn the invisible line between deterrence and open aggression. So the standoff's true distance wasn't 185 yards. It was the gap between showing restraint and surrendering initiative. And when each move is watched by the world, who really commands the sea, the one that advances, or the one that holds steady under fire? Discipline defined that encounter. Not missiles, not range, but raw control under pressure. In the Taiwan Strait, restraint kept the horizon stable and turned a near collision into proof of mastery. Every sensor pulse, every logged second, was more than routine, it was evidence that order beats impulse. Footage now stands as quiet testimony to how tactics prevent war before it starts. Watch each frame. See how judgment holds the line when weapons stay silent. In the fog of near war, restraint is strength. Subscribe and join a community that reads conflict for what it is: precision, patience, and power.